Right, welcome to Brew of the Day, where today things are actually a mess because I'm a solo driver today. My name is Roberta. Thank you so much for tuning in to what I purport to be your ultimate favorite morning show. And of course today, just like most days, we do have very interesting guests for you. But before I get into the guests, I think a few things that I might just want to pass by. To run by you in case you have forgotten, it's very important to remember that Ms. Botswana is out there. Finally went to India just last week, and she's going to represent Botswana, of course, at Miss World this year. If you do remember, the last time she was in India for a different pageant, she did come out in the top 3 positions. So we're hoping that this time, yeah, she could do the same thing. But even yet, we're hoping that we're not just going to be Miss Africa, but Miss World as a whole. So very, kudos to her. It was quite interesting and intriguing to see her alongside the Minister of Youth and Gender Affairs. Of course, that is Honorable Lesotho Chombo. It was really interesting to see that a year ago we celebrated her as Miss Africa, and suddenly she's the one, just basically saying goodbye or showing off the next Miss World Botswana to go and represent her. So I think we should do all that we can. I know that they've been sharing things like social media, voting lines, and of course rallying behind them with comments and other things. So it's quite important for us to follow that conversation and do that on the Miss Botswana page. So quite intriguing indeed. And yeah, just following up after seeing what the Botswana Meteorological Services are currently saying about the state of this year's winter. So I'm one of those people that, doesn't really enjoy winter like that. I often tell myself that, or in fact, I often tell other people that winter is a tricky one. Go to winter, like you do solution. Like, at the end of the day, so I'm very excited that it's going to be a much warmer winter. But of course, as we know, that climate change is a situation that we do experience. So that's one thing that could, see us having things like cold fronts, according to the Botswana Meteorological Services. Not my news, but it is indeed theirs. I was actually watching, something on South African media where they were talking about the spread of fake news regarding weather conditions, especially with looking at the fact that in just December we had things like floods and otherwise. So it seems like misinformation or fake news is not just something that's quite rife in politics, but it's something that's quite rife in things as small as or as big as issues of the climate. So that's just something quite interesting. But now let's look at the conversations that we're going to have today. I'm very excited to be talking to Ms. PELOENTLE, who is, of course, a very, very, a very talented, well-to-do farmer. And we'll be talking to her about all that she does when it comes to horticulture and, of course, extending her business and also joining that value chain when we look at things of entrepreneurship. Then next, we're going to be talking to the British High Commissioner, Mr. Giles ENTICKNAP, and he's going to be telling us this interview is going to be very light. We're basically introducing him to YTV, and we're getting to know him and, of course, what the High Commission is planning to do here. So stick and stay, and good morning. Right, we welcome you back to Brew of the Day. Just as promised, we're going to be talking to a business owner. She's the founder and the director of Surface Investments. Her name is PELOENTLE. We're very excited to have her here, especially when it comes to farming and otherwise. And also having a woman in that department makes it very exciting. Yes, please kindly introduce yourself. Tell me about yourself. Or myself.
YVONNE MOLOI. Ke mme wa lelapa, ke na le bana ba le 5. Ke tswa ko Surface Investments mme ka se tswa go bua. Surface Investment it's a horticulture project. Iko Mabwani, it's about 50 kilometers away we are in the Kweneng West area. Re simolotse temo ya rona ka 2017. 2017 tota ke re 2005. Re simolotse re le ko Sorowe. Ra be re le ka go phunya di sidiba yalo. We have about 7 blanks go Sorowe. ra be re tla yaanong re utlwalela gore metsi a mantsi ke ga Maboane ra be re tla then 2017 that's when e be re dira borehole ya rona ya ntlha ra be re simolola go lema mme mo go lemeng ga rona re simolotse ka dijalo di dintsi di harologana tota kana ke re ha o tsena mo kgwebong o leka ka sengwe le sengwe go bona gore mo go ka tswang ke gohe mo go ka go direlang maduo ke gofe mme re simolotse hela ka go lema bo cabbage ra lema ditamati ra lema le mmidi ha santse re tla itemogela gore gone mme area ra ile mo go yone ke tota e tlhoka dijalo tse dintseng ja
so gona ko Maboane go gore re leiswe hela ke kgwebo kganya gore go na le metsi kwa le bona e ka go ha there's potential for more ha se kganya gore gongwe ke go gae kana jang
nyam ha se kganya gore ke go gae nna ke tswa ko Tonota ke nyetse ko Soroe
o tswa ka kwa hela o tla ka kwa
ke tswa hela ka kwa e be re tota re tsitswe ke kganya metsi ka ke sa go tlhalosa gore ka ne re tla re tswa ka go kgaolong ya rona ya Soroe go sena metsi ra be re bona gore a re tle re be re utlwalla gore Maboane go na le metsi ra be re ta re be re ya Pasidiba re be re tla go tshwara metsi ya about 15 cubic ya metsi ya ra dirisa mo bogompieno nya
ke re gangwe le gape hela o tlo bo itlhela goreng ka lelapa le tsebe le na le fa mo go teha a kere gongwe ha ile gore motho a Soroe just outside Soroe hale decide tse o tsa bokgaswe jalo tlo bo utlwa go tenya motho o ipetse sengwenyana gone hale a kere gongwe kore o itlhela goreng o simolola business just because le na le fa mo hale but to be taken by a different location hela tota nna se so se leng gore ke tle ke se utlwa le thata so gone go a kgatla mme hela gore wena o iphitlhele o tsena mo farming go tswa bonyenyaneng a o tla re gongwe lo ntse le dira lo ko lapeng kana wena o tsene sekolo ro batla go nna teachera o bo hela ko go tsile hela jang tota ebile ke botsa gore nkgatlhego ya ntlha ya gago hela o santse o le monana kana o santse o le ngwana ne leng
tota ke tla re ke godile ke e rata temo ke godile ke e rata le ko lapeng go kgodiso ya rona hela ne re nna re a masimo ne re ngwaga le ngwaga kana kwa temo re lema magapu re lema bontshwe ke dio tsene ke di rata re di letsa gore re di je kana go le nako gape bile tota re rotloediwa gore re di je ka gore ne le dijo tsa Setswana tse tota o itse gore ga di dikota tsa teng ke tsone tse di re siametseng mme e rileng go jaanong nna yaanong kgatlhego ya metla go tsena mo teng le gore ke rata go mo mme bile ke lemoga le so se leng gore ha o se dira sena le bokamoso ke so se leng gore o ka se tlogela bana ba sala ba kgona gore ba itshitsa ka sone so ke sone dingwe tse di dirileng gore tota le rato la me le be le gola le nna le tona mo gone gore ke ka tsena mo go tsa temo
o bua yana o le bodingwaga tse kae ha le ntse la gona ko masimo le ntse la ko
ha re ya ko basimo ke bua yana ke le dingwaga tsa bo 10 11 emma simo tse hela jalo ka ngwaga tsone tse bo 10 bo 11 la ke tla go boa yaanong ke nna ko Phikwe la ha ke tla go boela mo Gaborone ne re ntse yaanong ho yone ke tla yaanong ke gola ke nna mme ke be ke tsawa le ene re o ile ene ke shareholder le nna mo businesseng ke region MOLOI re be re ya go Soroe ka gore ke teng kwa ga bone re be re ya go Soroe go tlhoka lesego ke teng go re dire ra tlhoka metsi teng re be yaanong re hela re tla ka ha Maboane
okay nya mme gone tota ha ke se ke simolla puisanyo ya rona ne ke tota ne ke tlhodimetse hela jalo gore o motho wa mme o iphitlhela gone in farming ke tlhaloganya gore gone mme yone ya gola re kgona go bona gore bo mme ba ntse ba bona la thata go gaisa nako tsele mme hela go wena o le ngwana mo setsana o kile ipotsa gore gongwe tla ke ire se sele go etla gone di gantsa gore nya tlhe o mosadi ha e go tshwanne ke mo sale ke sele se kana jang
nya gongwe ke re a se gore gongwe ke gona ke tlo go e kgabisa le khatalela temo gore batho ba bangwe le bone ba tshwanang le nna bo mme ja ka nna ba kgone go lemoga gore ga se so se leng gore gongwe ke sa borre pele ne re itse gore ke borre ke bona ba yang morakeng ke bona ba itseng ka dikgomo ke bona ba itseng ka leruo jalo ba itseng ka temo mme bo gompieno le rona bo mme re eme ka dinago le ka gona go bontsha gore le bona bana ba rona ba tsana gore ba tsene mo temong ke business e leng gore e ka go direla bokamoso ke business e leng gore e na le le thuto tse dintsi o ka ithuta go le go ntsi mo go yone e ya ka ke sa tswa go tlhalosa ka yone kganya ya temo ha ke tsena mo goreng gone mmedi gore e be re le ha re leng teng gompieno ke gore go tsaya ga ke itse ke re resilience ke gore go batla o na le lerato ebile o na le passion ebile o na le gone gore ke tla tshwarella mo go tse ka di bonang ka itlhela dikgwetso tsotlhe tse nka hetang ka tsone ke tla tshwarella mo go tsone so ke tsaya gore ya ka o sa tswa go botsa bomme ba ka tsena le bone ke kgwebo hela e leng gore e siame itshiametse hela e tlhoka hela gore o tsena ka lerato mo teng
nya gone mme ha re ntse re bua jaanong gore wena tota gore ka o se bua ka tsone dikgwetlo ke batla go boela ko morago hela gore tsatsi le no re itse re keng a go go mehela nne business e leng gore it's registered akere go tsile jang gore go nne jalo a no le motho e leng gore go mo o rekisa e se nne business kana o simolotse le business pele be le go re go mo simolla go rekisa hela jalo
tota ke tla re go registera go simolotse hela ka gone go kana ha ntse o ithuthuntsha mo le mosong se o se ratang o tla ka sone o tsena mo goreng o leke go bona gore gone mme ke ka dira jang gore go mo go mphe madi ke ka dira jang gore go mo go kgone gore go ntshetse jaanong wa itlhalele gore ha o ntse o ya yalo ha ke tsa ke ka lerato la gone gore letseno lone le tla be le tsena o tla bo ya no simolla o bona gore mme gore go mona go tsene mo boammaruring go tsene mo goreng go mphe botshelo ke gore go be go le mo tsamaiso go be go le mo seemong se e leng gore le ka mosola ha ke ya ko mothong ke re motho a modimo ke kopa o nthuse ka tsa dithuso tsa madi ampo dithuso tsa eng hela a be le nna ke tla ke le mo seemong se e leng gore I'm registered and well known
so gona gore go mo simolotse o rekisa eng pele le gona na hela ko iphitlhetseng teng
ga ka re ke simolotse ke le motho wa kgwebo wa go rekisa tota ke simolotse lerato la me le mo temong lerato la me le mo go nneng ko famong so gore hela gore ke ko famong ga be go nthuta gore mme anong ha ke le ko famong ke tlabe ke dira eng ke eng se se tlabeng se nje sa se dira gore yaanong ke nne le bokamoso ke gone ha ke tla tsena mo goreng mme anong madi ke a go a bona jang gore ke kgone gore ke itshetse e be ke simolla hela yalo e be le gone ke simollang ke ithuta gone go rekisa gore gone mme ke rekisa jang go ne go se motlhofo simolla o tsena kana ha o tsena mo marekisetsong o tshwanetse gore o simolle o bontshe batho gore o mang mme ebile bokgoni ba gago bokae a o tla kgona go supplya ka nako e rileng ka nako tsotlhe so re ithutile consistency gore e botlhokwa thata ga o le mo temong o tshwanetse gore ka nako tsotlhe a bo gona le seo se rekisang gore le bone bareki ba se ka ba go lebala
kana le wena kganye ya you reap what you sow e tswa gone ko go lona ba agriculture it must be scary because go re ha gona na go re mo ka itsapa ka yona ka gore ha o ka ira yalo ha gona sepe se leng gore le wena o ka re you can reap go ntsang hela tota go nna le go re mo leng gore tota hela you cannot skip again ha o ka ke re wa itsapa ha ile re ke na kwa go le matota o tshwanetse gore o bone gore wa go ira jalo. Is it challenging? Is it exciting?
Both. Okay. It's challenging ka gore o tla bo le dikgwetlho tse o tsena mo go tsena wa itse gore hela ha ka o tsena o tshwantse gore o itse gore and especially rona ko Mabwane we are always in the extreme ke gore ha go le tsididi it's extremely cold ha go le bollo it's extremely hot ha go le windy gore sengwe le sengwe it's always in the extreme ya ka gompieno a ka re tla be re lebile yana re tsena mo marigeng ra itse ra solohela gore ra itse gore tota ebile ko gona se simolotse just last week re ne le hailstorm se re itse gore ke kgwetlho tse leng gore re di ikemiseditse ya se botlhokwa ya ka go boela mo potsong ya gago gore is it challenging, is it exciting se botlhokwa ke gore o nne o itse gore ha go tswa mo go tsena eng ha go tswa mo go tsena eng ka gore wa go itlhelela gore gompieno ya ka gompieno re limile cucumber ke sejalo se leng gore ga se rate mariga ha di tsena mo marigeng ke dijalo tse di ntshang di-fruits dijalo tse di tshwanang le ditamati di-green pepper di-cucumber yalo ga se dijalo tse di ratang mariga dijalo tse e leng gore di batla go le bothithonyana
gore ke tla kopa rena mere e tshwere gone go e re ha re sena nna repota ka ga go mo botla gore bolelela hela o re rutuntsha gone gore dikgwetlho tse e leng gore di ntse jalo di ira jang and of course I know gore gona le yone that seasonal planting le gone gore le tlhopha hela jang mme gape jaaka o le monga CFS Investments I understand that it is a parent company also to something else something veggies dumela jalo re tla tsena mo go yone stick and stay. This is Brew of the Day. The conversation gets more interesting gape le wena hela o tlo itse gore if you want to do business with them or you want to get some of their products o ka dira ka tseleng tseng jang. This is Brew of the Day. Good morning. Yeah, this is brew of the day. I remember the other time this is a place for you to learn, and boy are we learning. I'm very excited to continue my conversation le mme MOLOI tota re bua hela jalo ka ke ene monga yone surface investments akere e leng goreng no tlhalosa hela jalo goreng it's a horticultural business. You sell your produce akere emma gongwe e tla re kopelenyana ha le go re bolela gore ke setsa bomang le ba ile gore gongwe bana le khatlego ya go tla go batla go reka mo go lona re tla re tsena gone ko mme no santse o tlhalosa ha ile gore kana maungo kana gongwe le tsone bo di cucumber ga di rate mariga mme gongwe ko ile gore le mateng kwa le setse di phitlhetse le na le sone se ha go seo jaanong di ipakanya jang ha go ntse jalo
tota ya ka re setse kana ka se dikgwetlho ke ra ka o ntse o ithuta o ntse o tsamaya so mo bogompieno re na le di-tunnel re ne ra tsenya di-tunnel. We have about 16 tunnels tse leng gore ha go nna mariga yana re tsenya mo go tsone.
Ha re tunnel re raeng kana
tunnel re raya ke mohuta ke ka go tlhalosa ke go sireletsa dijwalo ke mohuta o mongwe wa go sireletsa dijwalo o lemela ka ha tlase ga gone go na le mo go teng go na le gore o gona le open field o lemela hela mo lebaleng e be go na le shade net mo go tsengwang tsone di nets tse matloa a tla bonga gela lwana e be go na le tunnels ke mo go diriswang di plastic di special plastics tse leng gore o thela ha gongwe le oval shape ha gongwe mo gone mo ke gone mo e reng ha o tswa ga o bo kgona gore ha gongwe o bo go thena o go dirisa gongwe nna o go aga gape nna greenhouse. Greenhouse ke mo tla benyanong go le gore the temperatures mo teng they are regulated gona go itirela mariga ga go mo teng gona go itirela selemo sa go mo teng
creating conditions best for
the product the crop e tla bongwe itsentse ke teng go eleng go rotlhe re batla gore ke dumela go rotlhe re le balemi re batla gore iphitlhele re le go mo yore gona go itirela serame sa rona ha ile gore o batla gore di sitwe wa di sitisa ha batla di tsena mo bothithong
this one is off season.
Wena o go ga hela a go selemo a go mariga o go ga hela
a ke so se se turang
ke so se se turang thata se leng gore bile tota re eletsa gore ba tshwarang spatch ba tsene tota mo temong ba leke go rotloetsa bone balemi ba potlana e le gone go leka gore ba kgone gore ba iphitlhele ba le mo seemong se leng gore ba ka lema ba jesa lehatsi emma
ha re go a tura gongwe nna yo leng gore ga ke itse o ra so se leng gore se ja bo boka ke ra gore is it thousands. I understand that obviously depends on the magnitude akere ya so sa teng go ka re go 10 by 10 meters motho ka akanyetsa gore madi a teng a ka tshwara ha kae
bo 10 by 30 meters le di tunnel o itlhala le bo 100,000 ha ile complete gotlhe go tsena le one fittings and le go installation so o itlhala etsa magone ho meanong ha wa akanya gore gongwe yanong o bo ya go bo greenhouse ho yanong kana re bua le ka di air conditioning tse ileng gore le tsone di bitsa madi
wow o kile bana crop ena le conditioning wena o sena yone go lapeng
mme ke teng go re gatelang teng emma ke teng go re gatelang teng le gone go baballa tikologo gore e be le gore dio tsotlhe di le ka go di le mo a controlled environment
nya mme ke bona technology gore le lona le ntse na lone ntse le tsamaya lone emma so gongwe ja ka re se re tlhalositse hela gore surface investments you do give horticultural services including the main one ile one maungo kana merogo ile gore la producer gone ka go kana la ile market emma o ka re surface investments ina le which services do you have more consultancy jalo le irang hela go tlhogotle
mo bogompienong re santse re le mahela ra le mahela mme gone mme re na le gone lena la gore re rutuntse ba batlang ba eletsa go tsena mo temong re ke ra nna le bana ba ba tswang go buang batla go go rona for I think ene le bo 2 weeks ba nna le rona re ke ra nna le bana re na le sekole sa mahupu ba kile ba tla le bone ha go rona ba tsaya beke ke dio tse dingwe tse re le ka kana o tla le mo ha gore o ithuta ka go ruta ha o ntse o ruta motho ha o ntse o tla go nna o mpotsa ke go bolela le nna ke gona ka ntse ke ithutuntsa ke le ma gore go riana go mo ke a go itse so go sa face re na le lone le nna la gone gore ha ba batla go ithutuntsa ba ka tla go rona hela batla ba ithutuntsa ba nna le rona ba re ba ruta ra ba bontsha le bona ba ra ithuta mo go bone kana le bona e be santse le bana ba santse ba tswa ko sekolo bana dikitso tse di santseng di le fresh so ra be re batla go thepa mo go bone le bona as much as ba thepa information mo go rona.
And very true, as education is constantly developing le bone ba ka tla ka dingwe gape am sure le bone they get ideas from ha ba lebilana go nna monate thata. So kana go ha Surface Investments of course is the parent company to Something Veggies. Emma go mo ka ntlhalosetsa ho le gone gore pharologanya teng gone ho e ha kae ha re bile Surface Investments le one Something Veggies.
Surface Investments a ka sa tswa go bua it's a horticulture project mainly mo go producing the vegetables le gone go di isa go gantsi re rekisetsa di retail shops ya no re be re bona gore re na le ha ngwe mo go salang pele no go na le mo go salang ha ngwe go sena gore re ka go isa kae pele ha sa ntse na go ile di bolara di butswe malatsi ya go botoka jaanong re be re bona gore mme gore mo go salang mo le gone go kgone go hitlhella go bathong gongwe re be re bula madirelo a bidwa Something Veg re simolotse le Something Veg tota re isetsa tsone di vegetables mme re be re lemoga gore go na le bokgoni bo bongwe gape ba gore re ka godisa kgwebo ya no re be re tsenya butchery so re na le Something Veg and Butchery ya ka e bitswa e go tlokweng hela ha morago ga chopisiwo ha engine mo tseleng ele ya border to the border ka ha morago ga teng ka go re gone ka go Something Veg yone e tshutswe ka 2023
okay
go ra gore mo ngwageng wa bobedi re ntse re le go Something Veg mme ke ka re le yone e dira sentle di kgwetlho ya la hale tsa gore kana no re tsena mo businesseng e nngwe ya nama re dule ya no ko merogo ya re tsena mo businesseng e nngwe ya nama e leng gore le yone re tshwantse gore ano re tsena mo dikgwetlho tsa teng gore re dira jang go bona gore re hapa dikgwetlho tsa teng gore di ska tsa makgwebo ya rona
mme ke gona go bona gore go hantse le tswela pele it's very good to challenge and develop the business re nne go nna go bua hela jalo ka tsone dikgantse tsa value chain ya no go re bona motsana go nga iphitlhela a le ene go le lona le yone mo go yone kana no gona gore nama le yone le tebe le tsa kae from a different farmer kana jang
nama e tswa go ba rubi ka go harologana mme hela se botlhokwa ke gore re etsa go matlhabelo e tla etsa go matlhabelo go re tla be le morui yalo a isa go matlhabelong go rona be re tla re etsa go matlhabelo e le one go leka gape go kganela tsone dikgwetlho tsa gone gore kgantele be re sa itse gore nama e tla etswa go kae ya no fa mara o tla ba tla ka nama ba go matlhabelong rona be re etsa go matlhabelong re isa no re a go rekisa bile go rura tsa gone gore e tlhatlhobilwe ga e tlehela e be tla e bola ilwe e be re tla re rekisa nya e tshwantse gore e tsene ka matlhabelo e be tla e tlhatlhobiwa ke di-inspector ya lo ka go harologana di-procedure tsa bone tsotlhe ba di dirile rona be re tla ya re etsa ile khakhas
o itse go ha ke gona go bona gore go ithutantse go tswelela go gore ha o tsana mo gongwe gape kana le gona mo it has its own standards and practices and the way things should be done and sterilization process e leng gore e pharologano go me tla re in another decade ke bua le yena gore nya ana le tsa rena di kgomo nako ke yone re sileng o itse re totane ke batle go itse gone ka transporting go tswa kwa o tsisa ka go tlokweng the conditions but we make sure gore tla ka re le bitsa gape go me tla re nako ngwe helebe wa TV le ko ile go fa monyalona batho ba bone mme hela sa bohelo gongwe if somebody wants to book you for consultancy education kana they just want to be a customer ba batla some of your produce tota ba ka le letsa kae ba ka le bona kae
mogala o ka re tshwara mo gone ke wa 71771643 kana ba re sendela email ka surfaceinvestments@gmail.com or 731067 kana go re etela hela batla ba tsena go gorona go tlokweng batla re khela le go mabwane ha o tsena hela gore go ga moloi ga gona o sa go itse le go tlokweng hela ka ke tlhalositse hela ka morago ga mo tseleng along the road o ya go bordereng hela ka ha morago ga chopisiwo ha engineer ha finish station ba ka re bona go
MOLOI, thank you so much. I'm very, very inspired. Thank you very much, Emma. O bile hela jalo gore bomme a go leng go khabisa agriculture ka kwatle le borre ba ileng gore tota le bone ba in this industry. I'm sure you definitely understand dikgwetlho tse leng gore di nang kotse mme hela le gone gore on the other side you will reap gone go botlhokwa gore ne re supporta batswana o le hile megala. She's giving you directions and where you can find them, so let's support local and enjoy our own produce from our own soil, water and otherwise. The conversation continues. Re tatara za khanyarna re potisa ka ha re bua le ba the embassy of the United Kingdom to Botswana. That's another exciting conversation coming your way. Good morning. Right, we continue the conversation right here on Brew of the Day. So, of course, we did start off on an agricultural note, but now we sort of switch over to diplomatic ties, especially looking at the Republic of Botswana and, of course, its relationship with the rest of the world. I'm very honored today to have the British High Commissioner. His name is His Excellency Mr. GILES ENTICKNAP. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Roberta. It's great to be here.
Yeah, please tell me I said your surname right.
You did, ENTICKNAP.
Perfect. Well, I spent some time practicing. I just wanted to make sure. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very good. Enjoying the beautiful weather we've got this morning. Beautiful blue skies, a little chilly.
Yeah, just a little chilly. Yeah.
Lovely.
I think I'm sort of finding it difficult to adjust, but I can imagine where you're from. Like I said, you're the British High Commissioner. It's much colder where you come from. So you call this good weather, I call it very cold weather.
Exactly. This is like a British summer. This is like a good British
summer. Is this a summer?
Yes, it is.
My goodness. All right. Well, thank you so much for finally coming. I think this was a long time coming. Yeah, I'd been requesting for some time, and of course, your schedule was a bit packed, but eventually you did manage to make it here to talk to us. But I think the most important thing is basically, you know, we see a lot of things. When you go to the British High Commissioner page, you just see so many things, opportunities, apply for this, do this and that. But I think for most Botswana, the one thing is, why is the British, why are you here, right? What are your intentions here? But yes, we'll get into that a little bit later on. First of all, we want to know who you are as the ambassador. We want to introduce you not only to YTV, but to the rest of the country. Can you give us a little bit of your background and who you are, some of your experience in diplomacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm someone who enjoys people and making connections. That's why I went into this line of work. I think people are the most fascinating thing around us, and I enjoy learning from that and understanding different people's perspectives on the way they live, the way they think. And I think that's really important.
So you could have been a journalist.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of similarities between journalists and diplomats, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what brought me into it. And I've worked a lot in this region. So I spent quite a lot of time in Zimbabwe. I've worked in Malawi. I've worked in the DRC.
In the DRC?
Yeah, in the DRC. I've worked up in West Africa as well, in Mauritania. Spent a bit of time in Afghanistan. But I'm really happy to be in Botswana.
Yeah.
I first travelled through Botswana in 2009 in a rusty old Land Rover with a couple of friends on my way from Cape Town up to my hometown Oxford, in the United Kingdom.
My goodness, that's
so we took a drive, and I always remember the warmth that I received, the hospitality that I had in Botswana, including when we got stuck in the Delta for a couple of nights.
My goodness, in the Delta,
which was exciting but also terrifying.
Oof, yeah, I think the latter.
So at that point, I never thought I'd be back as a High Commissioner here. But it's a real privilege. Yeah, a real privilege to be here. So as you can probably tell by that, I enjoy getting out and about. I enjoy seeing this beautiful country.
Yeah.
I enjoy adventure, and I enjoy getting to know Botswana, its people, its culture, its politics, and finding ways in which the UK and Botswana can forge a deeper partnership.
You know, I always find it very challenging to interview ambassadors or high commissioners, and you know, I want to be very frank with you. I think my qualms are that you're basically here on assignment. I basically expect what you're going to say, right? I kind of know the area or the direction that you're going to take because it's part of the job. But I'm very excited that today, I'm hoping that we can have a very authentic conversation. And you've started off, you've started off in that way when you mentioned the Okavango Delta, getting stuck there. I think that is an experience that many people have had, that have had an opportunity to drive through. But you know, just your initial just introduction to Africa as a High Commissioner, the experience that you saw, or rather the perception that you had of the continent compared to now working the continent, what do you think the major differences have been?
Well, I think firstly, having a perception of an entire continent is a very difficult thing.
Oh, wow.
This is a continent that is rich and diverse,
Indeed.
and from Nigeria to DRC to Mauritania to South Africa to Botswana. I think actually seeing each country for its unique individual characteristics is your starting point, rather than looking at Africa as a continent, because the level of complexity and the diversity is so broad.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir. So many people need to hear this.
I think it's really, I think it's really important. And of course, I've had the privilege of traveling around Africa, a lot.
Yeah.
And around many different countries. And I think, that privilege of understanding the differences, the nuances, and really only scratching the surface. I mean, sometimes I feel you spend 3 or 4 years in a country, and you feel after that you realise what you don't know, which is often a huge amount.
Yeah,
and I feel I've worked in this region on or off for 20 years, and I feel I've only started to scratch the surface of understanding of the nature of the people, of the culture, and that's very humbling.
Yeah.
But I feel I know a little bit of something about something.
Yeah, indeed. Let's make that count.
And I've developed a real deep connection for this region.
Yeah.
And it's a real privilege to be back. But you're right in the sense that diplomacy is about building bridges. Right? It's about partnership between nations. But at its core, a partnership that is based on respect, equality, can only be built on true understanding. So, sort of leading on a bit in terms of why are we here? What are we doing? I mean, we're doing lots. You're right. You'll see a huge range of activities of things we're engaged in, which I can get into if you'd like. But at its core, our role is to understand, because, like in your own personal lives, to really have a good quality, meaningful relationship, you need to understand that other person. You need to understand their background, their upbringing, their values, their ways of thinking, their family, because that really helps you understand that person.
Yeah.
And I think for me that's at the core of diplomacy, which is understanding at a sort of nation state level, where each side of the partnership is coming from, because only by building that understanding can you create a partnership that is truly respectful, based on equality, and delivers things for both its people.
Okay, very exciting. So I think on the show we really do like to get to know the people who we're talking to, and I think that's why it was important for us to know just some of your background before we get into other issues, and of course also talking about just the African region in general. When I said you're preaching to the choir, I did indeed mean it, because it is something that I think people have got this vast perception of what to expect in the whole continent, and you find that somebody in Botswana doesn't know what somebody in Nigeria is going through, and it's often times where it's a bit unfortunate that you find out perhaps from Western media, a lot of times from your media as well. So I think also bridging those conversations, and there's just been a lot of controversy, and we will get into a little bit of that, especially with things like the elephant situation and things like that, and how you were able to have that conversation and eventually just forge a way forward. Let's get into this country, Botswana. Your call for Botswana, specifically this country, what do you think that, let me not say think, what is it that you are trying to achieve in this country?
Mutual economic growth is what both the government of Botswana and the government of the United Kingdom are absolutely clearly aligned on. That is our driver, because with economic growth comes inclusive growth. With economic growth comes greater stability. With inclusive economic growth, you further embed the fantastic democratic institutions and systems that Botswana upholds. So, in a very simple terms, it's about mutual mutual economic growth, supporting Botswana in a way that is both beneficial for the UK and beneficial for Botswana. Within that, we also have a key focus on collaborating on climate and nature. Botswana has done, you talk of negative stories from the continent. One of I think the most positive stories from this region is what Botswana has done to conserve its incredible landscape. We are bound together as humans by one single challenge that we all face, and that is climate change.
Indeed.
There is no way to hide from it. You can get into the politics of it, but at its core, you and I are impacted by it. Your crew in the studio are impacted by it. Choose anyone from anywhere in the world, they are impacted on it. What can we learn from Botswana? The way you have protected your flora and fauna is incredible, and I think part of my role is to be a voice for this country and to ensure that my country understands Botswana, and I think we can learn a lot as a global community about how Botswana has approached conservation, because I had the privilege of being up in the Delta a few weeks past, and it's just remarkable.
And it feels new every time you go there. I don't know what it is about the place. Yeah, it feels different every time you go. That there's just so much more to see. You've just said something quite intriguing about for your nation to understand our nation. You are one of those. You are part of a bigger bridge to sort of help them understand, right? Yeah. So we'll continue the conversation in just a moment. We're going to go for a short break. On the other side, we talk about just basically some of the opportunities that both nations have enjoyed from friendship with each other. This is Brew of the Day. Stick and stay. Right, we continue the conversation with the British High Commissioner in Botswana. His name is His Excellency, Mr. Giles ENTICKNAP. I'm very excited to be having this conversation. And of course, we touched a little bit about the Delta and other things. That is my favorite place in the country. Oftentimes, I don't like it when people mention it because I'm so tempted to just go that way. But that's not what the purpose of the interview is today. As we continue, one thing about when we look at, maybe Britain as a whole, in the past, and Botswana, we were actually a protectorate of that. And so when you look at our diplomatic ties, when you look at the history, there's a lot more friendship than anything. And I think that basically makes things easier in the sense that, when you look at the language, there hasn't really been much of a barrier. When you first arrived in Botswana and you're doing your work and all of that, just the communication styles, are you seeing any sort of difference in trying to understand each other? So this starts like accent-wise, then it goes to the culture, and when you make or try to form these diplomatic ties and make certain agreements or memorandums of understanding, would you say that there's been some barriers in trying to understand each other, or just the fact that we speak the same language means that we can now understand each other?
So I think, Botswanan society is extremely articulate, and that goes for all of my interlocutors. So I haven't really experienced any challenges.
Okay.
But there are a couple of things which I've really enjoyed, and I think, gosh, I wish we could take that back to the UK. And one of them is the greeting. Even coming into your office today, I really enjoy that, the way everyone greets everyone. Whether it's a president, a minister, whether it's a security guard, whether it's someone sweeping the streets. Everyone pays the same respect, and I just think that is such a wonderful starting point for the day. And it's lovely. I was out running yesterday morning and greeting everyone in the street. Everyone greets.
While you're running?
Everyone greets you, and I was like, trying to sort of out of breath. I'm not a very good runner. I'm trying. And everyone is greeting you. So I think so. I haven't experienced barriers, but there are, of course. There's it's a very different culture to the UK, and I'm learning different ways of interacting with the culture, and I very much enjoyed the greeting element of it. I think it's extremely, you start your day, you start your interaction with whoever it may be, based on based on sort of respect.
Yeah.
And it's that sense of I see you.
Yeah.
People don't walk past people and
And where
ignore
you're
them.
from, would you say it's a lot different?
Look, I'm from sort of rural UK, and when you go back to the villages, people are very, very friendly and greet. But when you go to the big cities,
it's bustling, it's busy.
It's less so.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's a United Kingdom thing, or I think it's just where you have a huge, collection of people together.
Indeed,
People sort of put their head down a little bit more.
True that. I definitely think that that's a factor. I'd like to believe so. So yes. So okay. So now that you're able to basically understand a lot of our culture, we're able to now communicate freely. Some of the opportunities that have been created for Botswana. Could you share maybe just some of the activities that you do get up to? One thing I've seen is scholarships. I've seen people travel. I'm going to the UK. Consider me next time. And yeah, I've seen so many different things, and I've seen a lot of times where your voice as the UK on certain issues regarding human rights, and I know that members of like LGBTQI plus groups as well have also been able to have conversations openly and freely, because you kind of create that platform. Just some of those activities that you get up to, and why you think it's important to perhaps bring something up to us that we might not be bringing to the table.
Yeah, gosh, Roberta, lots of questions there. Let me start on your point on human rights. I mean,
okay.
As your viewers will know, His Excellency the President has been very clear about a sort of human rights centered approach, and that's
Indeed.
something which we welcome, and we're looking to work with the government closely on. And when I spoke about mutual economic growth, of course, human rights and sort of well-respected human rights and a robust judiciary and freedom and rights for all individuals and those with protected characteristics. What that does is that creates the enabling environment for more investment. So it's one of those points where people say human rights. Well, actually, human rights is linked to economic growth because when you have an environment that is conducive for individuals, companies and investments are made up of individuals and people, and that has a direct impact on sort of attractiveness for the investment climate. And actually, His Excellency the Vice President will be travelling to London this week, and I've had the privilege of joining some meetings with him in London on Monday. And one of the things he'll be doing is meeting with top investors in the City of London to explore areas and sectors for greater UK foreign direct investment, particularly in the renewable space. Why the renewable space? Because the government has set out a really clear vision, a really impressive vision for Botswana to become a renewable energy hub. The UK has gone through its own transition in terms of the use of renewables. We have a lot of expertise, but we have a lot of investors that are excited about Botswana. The remarkable democratic transition that you had in November of last year has created an excitement around Botswana. We were speaking earlier about the kind of people thinking of Africa as a whole, sort of misconception that you can even look at the continent in one, take it in one go, and I think it's reminded people of Botswana, like this incredible investment climate, this incredible democracy, a place that is peaceful, that is safe, and we're doing a lot with investors in the UK to build on that. Okay. And I'm very excited to accompany His Excellency the Vice President to London next week as part of that. You mentioned about opportunities. So you touched on sort of education. So the education links between the UK and Botswana are really thick. And
indeed.
There are many of our top academic institutions engaged here, whether it's Oxford University, Glasgow University, and we have lots of partnerships between those universities, particularly in the innovation space, also the education space.
Yes.
We have scholarships, which are called the Shevening Scholarships. That's something we have globally. We've just done interviews for this year, so you have to look out for applications next year.
Yeah.
But what that is an amazing opportunity. It's a fully funded master's program in the UK funding for the education, and also the living expenses, accommodation, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I'm really proud that we have some very high profile.
And having a minister who's actually enjoyed that same scholarship, Honorable Bukholeke Nwendo. So
exactly.
Yes,
she has.
Yes, she has. Yeah. And I think a lot of us have definitely. I mean, I'm one of the people who wrote a Cambridge exam for my GCSEs. I know so many people who've gone to university that side. I remember one of my lecturers actually when I was studying media. When he did the whole translating Google English to Google Setswana, it was when he was actually at Oxford that he was actually able to do that, and marking exams for Setswana and stuff like that. It's because he studied lexicology and English over that side. So we can definitely see a lot of the impact, and we're seeing the biggest university in the country, many of them, those scholars have enjoyed education that side. But I think on a very selfish nationalism type of perspective, it would be nice for us to have our own Oxford. So, in terms of that, like you said, mutual enjoyment of these things, how do you think we can now move forward and try to have that ourselves? How can you help us have our own Oxford?
Well, I mean, you've got some incredibly impressive academic institutions here, universities, and we've had a lot of engagement with UB here. I think actually I don't think you can have your own Oxford, because that wouldn't be right, because actually you have your institutions which are of high quality. But I think it's more about how can we deepen understanding and share best practice, share expertise, and that's all. That's already happening. And the universities here have strong reputations internationally. But perhaps it's something for us to look at. See how can we get more colleagues from the UK to study here.
Yes,
and
that's
not
what
just
we want.
that way.
Exactly.
But we do have collaborations, and we've got some great collaborations in science and technology, innovation. Also in education itself. Indeed. Primary education.
Because I think for us, we'd really like to see the British pound being spent not just at the Delta, but in a diverse array of sectors. But Your Excellency, there's so much more that we can talk about. And unfortunately, as you can tell that, production is saying, girl, wrap it up. So unfortunately, we do have to do that. But thank you so much for gracing us and coming to talk to us. And, hopefully in the future, we can now start talking about specific issues. Now that we've done this introductory sort of interview, the next ones, I hope that will be a lot more, hawk's eye on specific situations and, how we can better fix those situations. But thank you so much for gracing us in studio. Thank you so much to your team for making this happen.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, yes, I was talking to the British High Commissioner. Very, very interesting conversation. And of course, if you want us to talk to him about any other thing, please just write your comment down below on the Facebook page at YTV. This is if, of course, you're watching us on channel 291 on DSTV. Head over to Facebook, comment, and let us know what you would like for us to talk to them about. In as much as we didn't enjoy a conversation with you, it doesn't just have to be you. It could be somebody from the educational sector of your commission. So it could be. So let us know. But nonetheless, the show does go on. I'm about to say goodbye in just a moment. So stick and stay. This is Brew of the Day. And just like that, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me first take this time to thank my guests. And of course, we did start a conversation talking all things horticulture. And of course, some of the challenges that they do find, but some of the, greener solutions that are out there and opportunities for us to learn how we can be a part of the agricultural value chain. And stop saying things like strawberries are not in season, because we can create those conditions using technological advancements that we do find in other industries, but in farming too, and specifically in agriculture. So thank you so much to the founder, co-founder of Surface Investments, Ms. PELOENTLE. Thank you so much for that one. And of course, the British High Commissioner, for agreeing to do this interview with us, talking to us about this and that regarding what the British High Commission is here to do. Look, it was just a light and fun-hearted interview. And we hope that just in the near future, we will be zooming in on very pertinent and very specific issues regarding what the British High Commission is doing in Botswana. And if indeed this relationship, is as neutral as it is planned to be. So with that said, I do implore you to please watch out for things like fake news. I think I did mention this when I did begin the show, that it's quite imperative for us to start looking at reliable sources. So much is happening in the international arena of politics, where we're seeing issues between India, Pakistan, the DRC. We're looking at the United States. We're looking at what's happening with Israel, Palestine, Russia, Ukraine. These are just some of the countries that right now many news outlets have got their eye hawks on them. So you can trust YTV rather to be a reliable source for all the information that you get. And I do implore you to please only get your information from verified sources, because they can be challenged and they always have proof, and YTV of course is the home for that, and myself included as a journalist employed right here at YTV. So I'm very ecstatic to have had those two conversations that I did have, and just to hear from the horse's mouth some of the pertinent issues that we do face, and of course some of the solutions that we try to find moving forward. I'm hoping that the next time around we will be with Kego. He was kind of off on a flu. I don't know if you heard him just this past Wednesday, that he was not feeling too good. So yeah, I'm hoping that he's going to be back with me the next time around, and that things will go back to normal. Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. Please catch Brew of the Day, channel 291. That is YTV, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays between 7 and 8. And then, of course, you can head over to our Facebook page. Go to YTV, you'll find news, and of course, you'll find the Brew of the Day show airing there, as well as other shows and other exciting programming. My name is Roberta Media on all social media platforms, and from us right here from Brew of the Day, toodles, and catch you next time.